I'm Jermay, and I'm here to tell you about my new book, Modern Mentalism. So the first thing, I suppose, is why the title Modern Mentalism? The answer is kind of simple and kind of predictable. The book is full of routines and demonstrations designed with modern audiences in mind. When we look to the word mentalism in the magic community, often people can misinterpret that to mean a kind of old school approach to mind reading. Very often you find yourself reading old books about mentalism and they're kind of confusing or they feel archaic. I wanted to make it absolutely clear from the front cover that this is a whole book full of demonstrations designed with modern audiences in mind. I've used everything in the book for real, breathing, living humans that have come to theatres to see performances of mind reading. So inside of the book you've got a whole bunch of different stuff. I tried to pick a really varied mix from stand-up material to close-up material to stuff that can work one-on-one to stuff that can work for 1,500, 2,000 people in a theatre. And I've used most of the material in many different guises. The stand-up material can work in a cabaret setting, or it can work in a formal theatrical setting to a much larger audience. Equally, the close-up demonstrations can work walk around if you do that kind of performing, if you walk around table to table, but it's equally as comfortable to perform that material in a kind of casual conversational style with people after dinner or in a bar or just kind of sitting around. So there's a whole bunch of different material. There's one thing in here that I know people have been waiting for, one specific thing, and I'm really pleased to finally put it in print, and that's my handling of a trick called touching on Hoi. I first came up with this idea when I was 15 or 16 years old, and it kind of caught the attention of the mind reading community. It's a completely prop-free, anywhere, anytime demonstration of telepathy. Now what's new and what's interesting in this book is the routine is called touching on divination, and it's my method to create a whole mind reading show with no props. It gives you a full 30-minute act where you appear to read the mind directly of 3 people. No pre-show work, no props, no stooging, none of that stuff. You then immediately can answer detailed personal questions about each one of those 3 people on stage, and then begin to work with the entire room, dealing with their personal thoughts. So with no props, just with your mind and your mouth, you get to create a full 30-minute mind reading show. I've never shared it anywhere before. It's never been in print anywhere before. It's never been on DVD anywhere before. This is the first place you will get it, and it's, I think, one of the best things I've ever shared. I'm super proud of it, and I think you'll love it, and I think you will use it. Otherwise I wouldn't put it in this book. I guarantee if you use that one routine, I'll feel like this book was worth your time. There's also an entire system in the book for the performance of what I would think of as being mental magic with playing cards. Slight separation here between the notion of really kind of hardcore mind reading, the kind of thing that you can get in this book with touching on divination, versus slightly more light-hearted card magic material, but with a psychological or telepathy or kind of mind magic flavour. One of the demonstrations involves having a spectator look at the deck as you spread them in your hands. You then square the deck up and you ask them if they believe that they could have, in that amount of time, memorised the positions of cards. Obviously, they say it's impossible, but you explain that somewhere in their subconscious they have managed to keep a picture of the entire shuffled pack of cards. You prove this by having somebody else name a card, and then the spectator, who does not believe they could have remembered any of them, is asked to simply touch the back of one card and it's exactly the one named. But more important than that single trick is within this chapter of the book there's what I think of as the system for performing mental magic with playing cards. It'll allow you to essentially locate any named or thought of card instantly with no memory work, which I'm really proud of. This is also great if you don't do mind reading or magic with cards that much or that often, because it's the kind of thing that once you've learned it, you can put it away and you can come back to it 6 months later and it will still be there. So that's one of the motivations for this. I don't perform card magic a lot professionally, but I always know I've got this sitting there and I can pick it up and put it straight into the show. I don't have to worry about running back over the memory, as it were. So essentially it gives you all of the strengths and the options of a memorised deck without any of the long months of learning how to memorise cards. And there's a whole bunch of things that you can do with that. There's another routine in the book that uses an ESP card premise, and it is actually the opening routine that I did for many, many years when I did walk around mind reading. These days I only perform on stage and in theatres, but back in the day I used to do walk around mind reading, and this was kind of the routine that I used to introduce the notion of what mentalism was to a table full of people. And I think it's a great opening routine because it gets you into the group. You get to do 3 strong reveals, one after the other. There's a lot of sort of engagement in the routine, but more importantly, it begins to teach the people watching the effect what they can expect from you further down the line. It's a great intro into a group of people, especially if they're not entirely sure what you are, if they're not sure what a mind reader or a mentalist is. It gives a really good framework for you to hang the things that you'll do later in the show on. So I've used that in a walk-around environment. I've also used it in a casual environment. I've even done that trick on television, actually. I did that trick during a TV interview promoting one of my stage shows. It's kind of a really useful thing just to have a little deck of ESP cards in your pocket, and now you've got a whole kind of demonstration that makes mind reading make sense. Then we have something I'm super proud of, and something that I've used without exaggeration hundreds of times in theatres across the UK, as well as in cabaret performances as well. This is a great trick in the sense that it can scale up or down. It could even be used in a dinner party environment with 10 or 12 people. It's a drawing duplication routine where you have multiple audience members each make a drawing. One of those is then picked by another spectator unknown by you, and then you have within the routine 5 personal pieces of information that you reveal about the person that made the drawing, including their date of birth, their star sign, other personal details about them, before you eventually go on to actually duplicate the drawing. And then, even better, there's a surprise second phase that I will leave as a surprise for when you read the book. But this is a full 15-minute routine that you can use in a professional stage show, and all you need for it are a couple of business cards, some envelopes and some pencils, and that's it. And you can do it on the biggest of stages. It could be scaled up. You could have everybody in the room make a drawing if you wanted to. I tend to do it with around 20 people at a time, but it can be made as big or as small as you want. You could do it with 5 at a restaurant table. You could do it with 1,500. You just need a lot of pencils. So it's a really great routine, and it's something that I think a lot of people will find immediately can go into the shows that they're doing, because it's kind of, I think, with mind reading, the drawing duplication premise, the idea of somebody making a drawing in secret and then the mind reader somehow discovering what the drawing is one of the cleanest, most direct line plots that we have. It's so visual, it's so clear, and it's so precise in its effect on the audience. It's very clearly impossible. So if you don't already do a drawing duplication, you absolutely should be. It's such a classic premise, but it's such a straight line, such an amazing, clear demonstration. And if you don't already do one, there's a great one in this book, and I think if you do one already, you might quite like the one that's in this book, because it gets you a whole bunch more than you might normally get from just a drawing duplication. So that's a kind of mass drawing duplication routine that I'm really proud of, that can work in sort of many different environments. And then we also have something else that's a kind of presentational hook more than anything, but I've used it within multiple tricks over the course of my life, from book tests to just revealing a playing card even, to drawing duplications, to pretty much anything that's actually contained in the book. This idea or this concept can be dropped in and used alongside it. One of the big things that I'm interested in, and one of the things that I talk about in the book and try and sort of explain clearly in each one of the routines that I do, is the process of mind reading. Because with magic we have beautiful visual moments. You know, the paper is set on fire and there's a big burst of flame, or the playing card visually transforms in front of your eyes, or the coin melts away into nothingness. Obviously, by definition, mind reading, the demonstrations of telepathy or body language reading or whatever it is you happen to perform, are inherently invisible. They don't have a visible earth to inhabit, they happen in the ether. So a big challenge with mentalism, in my opinion, is to put as many visual signposts along the way as possible. And I always think of these as being kind of mental snapshots, little things, little images that people can keep in the back of their mind after they've seen your show. So one of my favourites is something that I call the heart connection. And in this, you actually have a spectator place their hand to your chest, and they feel your heart beating inside of your chest. You then get them to pay attention to their own heartbeat inside of their chest. Initially, your heartbeat and their heartbeat will be out of sync, as you would expect, and yet through the invisible process that you apply, the spectator suddenly feels their heart beating in perfect time with yours, indicating that at that moment you have now connected with them and you're able to read their mind. It's a really powerful moment. It's really got a great metaphoric content. It's a great symbol for the concept of mind reading, but within a larger routine it becomes a kind of flag post. It's a great visual with you and the spectator joined on stage, and the concept is really sort of touching in a very real sense. It's a touching way of expressing this moment of two minds meeting. It gives it a visible framework. But that's a quick idea of what's inside, and I hope you can tell that I'm very proud of this material. It's all material that's been performed for real people, and I know I keep stressing that, but I've done all of the hard work for you. I really have. Because it's all well and good thinking of an idea and even sitting around and practicing an idea. But the real challenge is eliminating all of the problems that you never imagined would be a problem. So it doesn't matter if we sit around practicing material, we only find out the real challenges and the real problems when we're actually doing it for a real audience full of people. Because in those moments, the craziest things that you never would have considered suddenly arrive, and you have to deal with them. You just have to get through that, and you have to get through that performance. And then once you've done that maybe 100 or 200 times, you've kind of eliminated all of the unexpected problems, because the things that you come up against, you suddenly factor in a solution. So that's the really hard work, and that's really what this is about. It's a craft, in my opinion. We work through these things in front of an audience and we learn how to eliminate the problems before they arrive, but we can only do that by experiencing them ourselves in performance. The good news is you won't have to experience any of those problems, because I've done it and I've wrote about all of those things in the book. So you get to get a collection of material that's really tried and tested. And I think any one of the tricks could be done by any of you in a professional show tomorrow. I really do.